This is Canadian Conservative MP Jamil Jivani. Now, most Canadians don't even know who he is, but they should. He is the Conservative Member of Parliament for Durham, and a close ally and supporter of Pierre Poilievre and a new rising star in Canada's Conservative Party. But many think that he might be the smiling conduit through which MAGA politics flows north into Canada, bringing with it Donald Trump, Peter Thiel, and the entire American oligarchy. So, what makes Jamil Jivani so central to this assault on Canada? First of all, he was college roommates and remains best friends with U.S. Vice President JD Vance. And the two openly admit to a long time and ongoing friendship. And that includes Jivani having read a Bible verse at Vance's wedding, attending the U.S. inauguration of Donald Trump as an honored guest of Vance. And, Jivani even ran a fantasy football league with Vance for the better part of 10 years. Now, when he's asked of his connections to Vance and the Trump administration, Jivani really plays it down and says things like, well, mostly when we talk, it's about family stuff. Jivani knows Vance's mother, his wife, and his kids. He goes on, it's like one of the weird parts of your friend becoming the vice president is that you really can't forget about all the personal stuff before that. I really don't talk politics with him very much. I never have. Oh, come on. Here are two men, JD Vance and Jamil Jivani, whose entire lives are built around politics. They studied for it, they're now engaged in it, and their future is all involved in it. And they're trying to convince us that when they get together, they don't talk politics? Who are you kidding, or who are you trying to fool? And those denials by Jivani make you really wonder if he's just an innocent dupe, or perhaps he's a willing participant in an American conspiracy to undermine and destroy our country and our way of life. Jivani's comments on attending the Trump-Vance inauguration included, JD's inauguration is a special moment for me personally. I'm not there just to congratulate my friend. I'm also there to begin the steps in what will be a long and laborious process to build and strengthen relationships between Canada and the United States. The tumultuous time that Canada's economy is in right now is a direct result of a toxic dynamic between the Trudeau Liberals and the first Trump administration. Positive change is unlikely to happen overnight, and that is what I'm trying to help accomplish. So first of all, so much for there's nothing political in our talking between friends or interactions. Okay? It's just crazy. And he's trying to say that what Trump is doing in Canada is a result of Canadians' actions. It's because of Trudeau Liberals is why Trump is destroying the entire civilized world. Come on. So why do they always lie about their connection with Trump and the Trump admin? Well, obviously, misdirection. Just like his party leader and partner in crime, Pierre Poilievre, they've both learned that they can get more votes and more support in Canada by pretending they're opposed to Trump and his extreme right-wing policies. Kind of reminds me of when Alberta Premier Danielle Smith flew down to Mar-a-Lago with Kevin O'Leary and Jordan Peterson to create a back channel to Trump for Pierre Poilievre and to convince Trump of the benefits he could get if he helped get a Conservative government elected in Canada. Poilievre and the Conservative Party keep making secret overtures to Trump admin while screaming that Prime Minister Carney is somehow buddies or in cahoots with Trump. No, guys, we didn't believe you then, and we don't believe you now. No matter what Pierre Poilievre, Jamil Jivani, the Conservative Party, or any other factions of the Maple MAGA movement may tell you, Jivani is well-grounded and has impressive credentials in the world of extreme right-wing political and economic theory. In 2020, he was appointed a senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, a conservative libertarian think tank affiliated with the U.S. Atlas Network, which is heavily funded by the Koch family and the oil company multinationals. Just think anarcho-capitalists, because that's exactly what it is. He later became president of the Canada Strong and Free Network, which he stepped down from to announce his candidacy when he was going to run for Parliament for the Conservative nomination Durham, because he knew that connection would not be to his benefit, because that group the Canada Strong and Free Network. Similarly, is an extreme right-wing group funded, and the entire mandate of that organization is to promote the economic interests of the oil industry and fossil fuel energy companies. Now Jivani is on a new crusade. He wants to be Canada's Charlie Kirk. He has launched an initiative that's called Restore the North. You can see the group's main webpage here. Recently, I appeared on the Bill Kelly podcast and made a few comments about Jivani's latest side hustle. Here's what I had to say.
Who started a whole movement really aimed at young people, in particular young men, catering to them and bringing them along, trying to push them over to the conservative view. I find it fascinating because as I went to see their information, their website, their documentation, it all was aimed at the victimization, talking about how much abused young men are, and how they're ignored by society. They didn't talk about the policies that they were asking them to sign up for. Big button at top, here, sign up to support our policies. But all the support of explaining nothing about what the policies were. It was all about how you're being taken advantage of, you're being hurt, you're being, ignored, and you're being cheated out of your birthright. I just found it crazy. But the Conservatives are making a real strong effort to go towards young people, and in particular young men. And they're responding to that. And you can see it in Canada as well as in the United States. I mean, Charlie Kirk was a prime example of that. And I think that that's what he's trying to emulate, is to make that kind of a movement here in Canada. He set up a college tour going campus to campus, setting up meetings where he's going to preach and talk to people. So we're seeing it here too.
Well, and Poilievre is mixed up with that. Jordan Peterson, there's a whole bunch of people like that. And yet, as you say, the catchphrase a lot of them are using is freedom. Our freedoms have been taken away from us. And I got to tell you, it's a head scratcher for me, Nick, because I said, well, what freedom are you talking about?
Now, let's get back to Jamil Jivani and his ties to JD Vance. Because you see, Vance is a much more important piece, much more integral to power and the political puzzle than most people think. He is, after all, the hand-picked protege of Peter Thiel, who appears to be the tech bros kingpin in the billionaire oligarchy that's in full control of the Trump regime. But they know that Trump is old and that his health is failing. So they've been thinking ahead, and they've placed Vance into the White House, ready to step in and ensure continuity of their power if and when Trump falters or passes away. Here's an article from the New Republic that talked about Peter Thiel and his mentorship of JD Vance and their relationship. The article talks about Peter Thiel, who was a benefactor for JD Vance and basically encouraged him to go into politics and become a senator, to run for the Senate. The article says they were both inspired by an obscure software developer who had some truly frightening thoughts about reordering society. I wanted to talk about this fellow who was called Curtis Yarvin. Under a pseudonym in 2008, wrote some very disturbing manifestos talking about converting human beings into biodiesel, using that to power muni buses. Yarvin, a self-described reactionary and extremist, who was 35 years old at the time, later said he was just kidding. And he went on to say, the trouble with the biodiesel solution is that no one wants to live in a city where public transit is fueled by even just partly by the distilled remains of its late underclass. What kind of talk is this? He then concluded that the best humane alternative to genocide is to virtualize these people, imprison them in permanent solitary confinement, where, to avoid making them insane, they would be connected to an immense virtual reality interface so they could experience a rich, fulfilling life in a completely imaginary world. Now that is insanity. But Yarvin's disturbing manifestos earned him influential followers. Chief amongst them was tech billionaire Peter Thiel and his Silicon Valley protege, Senator JD Vance, whom the Republican Party ended up nominating to be Donald Trump's vice president. If Trump wins the election, that's when this article was done, they hadn't had the election yet, there's little doubt that Vance will bring Yeltsin's twisted techno-authoritarianism to the White House, and as one can imagine, with horror, what a receptive would-be autocrat like Trump might do with these ideas. So there's some disturbing stuff going on. The article says both Thiel and Vance are friends of Yeltsin. In The Contrarian, Peter Thiel and Silicon Valley's Pursuit of Power, reporter Max Chafkin describes Yeltsin as a house political philosopher of the Thielverse, a term for the people in Thiel's orbit. Since entering politics, Vance has publicly praised and parroted Yeltsin's ideas. That was worrying enough when Vance was only a senator. Now that he could soon be a heartbeat away from the presidency, his close ties to Yeltsin are more alarming than ever. Superficial analysis of why certain tech billionaires are aligning with Trump tend to fixate on issues like taxes and regulation. But that's only part of the story. Tech plutocrats like Thiel and Elon Musk already have money. Now they want power. As much power as money can buy. Stories about Vance tend to focus on his hard-scrabble Ohio roots, but his relationship with Thiel and his stint in San Francisco are key to understanding his politics. Vance owes his meteoric rise to Thiel, who largely bankrolled it. As a Yale student in 2011, he heard Thiel gave a speech in which he suggested that smart people would be working in tech instead of wasting their time at elite schools. Afterwards, Vance emailed Thiel, who invited him to California. Following a brief stint as a lawyer, Vance moved to San Francisco. Eventually, he landed at Millthrill Capital, a company co-founded by Thiel. He finished writing Hillbilly Elegy while there, and Thiel wrote a blurb praising it. When Vance moved back to Ohio and eventually started his own fund, both Thiel and Mark Anderson invested. When Vance ran for U.S. Senate, Thiel spent an unprecedented $15 million on the campaign and persuaded Trump to endorse him. Vance had previously compared Trump to Hitler, so it took some talking, but Thiel got Trump to endorse him. In 2024, Thiel led the charge to convince Trump to pick Vance as VP. But it was Thiel who basically pushed Vance onto Trump and basically insisted this was going to be your VP. Vance is a Thiel creation. And like his billionaire benefactor who once wrote, "I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible," Vance embraces a radical ideology hell-bent on destroying government as we know it. And they got these ideas, at least in part, from Yeltsin. My God, I only wish that this stuff was sci-fi or fiction. Not like a horror story. These are the men, these are the people who are behind the Trump administration. They're also the people, JD Vance and his crowd, that Jamil Jivani is so close to, and by default, Pierre Poilievre. What the heck are these people up to? It's absolutely terrifying. So, where does this all lead us to then? Well, if the men in power have installed JD Vance as their man in Washington, it's beginning to look like there's a possibility they may be looking to Jamil Jivani to be their man in Canada. And that's a very disturbing prospect to consider, and a really scary one. I'm working with a few other sources to get more background and research on Jamil Jivani and his schemes and his activities. Please subscribe to this channel for updates and for the very latest developments as they are unearthed. I want to thank you again for watching this video. And listen, we'll see you next time. You keep resisting, I'll keep making videos and researching, and we'll get there in the end. Thanks again. Thanks for watching this video. This channel is Beyond America, Canada Looking South. Here are a few other videos you might be interested in. And remember, stay engaged, stay active, stay informed, and always keep up the fight.